Hello, creative, and welcome back to the Empowered Creatives Podcast, finding confidence between hustle and burnout. I'm your host, Victoria Hines, creative career coach, helping creatives just like you navigate those twists and turns in your creative career. Speaking of burnout, last week was Burnout Part 1. So that was part 1 to my 2-part series that I am sharing with you on the very topic of burnout. This week, we're going to dive into part 2. So if you missed last week's episode on burnout, I talked about what it is, how do you recognize burnout, and why it happens. This week, we're actually going to dive into some really nifty, great strategies to help you journey and venture out of the pit, dark, evil place of burnout, because it is a journey. You can't just kind of like snap your fingers and magically you are on the other side. So before I dive into this episode, I have to caveat that most of my knowledge and information I have on burnout has come from this incredible book. It's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. I've mentioned it multiple times on this podcast. I think it's an absolutely brilliant book. It combines stories with science to really kind of give you a full 360-degree picture of what burnout is and how to overcome it. I will caveat, it does tend to lean more towards focusing on female identifying individuals. A lot of the science as well is going to be on stereotypical cisgender women instead of covering the spectrum. Unfortunately, science is as good as what we have, and that's what we've can put our fingers on right now. So we'll caveat all of that, but I still think no matter who you are, reading that book is going to really give you some incredible insight, knowledge, and skill on how to get out of burnout. So I would say it's my little go-to book. I hit burnout twice this year. I talked about that in the last episode. This is the book I went back to. In fact, I ordered a second copy. My other copy is sitting in storage in Chicago. So I ordered a second copy of the book because the second I hit burnout, I recognized it for what it was. I knew I needed this little book on my side. And all of this is to say, I'm not making any money from telling you about this book. I just think it's incredible. So, all right. So without further ado, if you remember last week, I'll do a real quick recap. We talked about what burnout is, and really it's emotional exhaustion. It's feelings of depersonalization. Your empathy and compassion are all used up, and you have a decreased sense of accomplishment. Everything you do feels like it is not enough and it is not making a difference. And that can all be signs, symptoms of burnout. Why it happens, there's quite a few different reasons. Scientifically, it's unreleased stress that builds up over a period of time. It's oftentimes stress we don't even realize that our bodies are holding on to. It's highly prevalent for women because of what's called human giver syndrome. This is something that you don't have to be a woman to experience, but it's the sort of idea where your entire meaning in life comes from bending over backwards and catering to other people. Ultimately, burnout really does happen in the place where there's a massive chasm between where you are at today and where you want to be. And the effort you are putting in and day out is not meeting your levels of expectation. So with all that being said, we know what burnout feels like. We know why it happens. This episode, I'm going to dive into 8 strategies to help you journey back out again. Hey there, creative. I have a delightful invitation just for you. Imagine diving even deeper into the incredible world of living your life as an empowered creative, including more tips, tricks, and advice arriving straight into your inbox. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, guess what? I've got something special brewing, and I don't want you to miss out. Introducing my oh-so-awesome bi-weekly email newsletter. It's a vibrant community bursting with passion, curiosity, and the love of building a creative life. By joining my newsletter, you'll get first access to new promotions and launches, as well as my welcoming voice in your ear every other week. Also, I'll share with you my creative career audit worksheet, a secret tool myself and clients have used during our own career transitions and pivots. So don't miss this opportunity to be my pen pal, as well as deepen your connection with fellow empowered creatives by heading to www.victoriahines.com or following the link in the show notes below. Thank you for being such an incredible listener. And I really look forward to sharing this exciting journey with you through both the podcast and my newsletter. Now, let's dive back into the show. All right, so strategy number 1, ignore the stressor and release the stress. So many of the stressors that happen to us in our 21st century culture, we can't control. You can't call out and cuss out your boss or somebody who works above you in the workplace. It's very not healthy to get road rage and run over somebody else's car who cuts you off on the road. We can't, as artists, I think this is super frustrating, but we can't snap our fingers and overnight help people realize how valuable art and creation is over so many other things that get valued more than us. Like lawyers and accountants and doctors, and not to say all of those people aren't doing amazing, incredible things, and we all need doctors. However, it just sucks. So we can't always fix the stressors. First and foremost, there comes a lot of days, a lot of times where you just have to put the stressors on the back plate, do a little mindfulness, let them come, let them go, and focus on releasing the stress. Because the stress is really what's going to build up a lot faster and do you in and take you kind of like grab a hold of your hand and just guide you straight down into that deep, dark pit of burnout. So, how in the world do you release stress? First and foremost, the number one thing is exercise. I know. It's what everybody talks about in events. Can make you feel healthy and strong, but truly and really, our bodies love exercise. Even just moving, going for a walk, doing jumping jacks, punching a pillow. I know I've actually done that before. Something that gets your body moving can kind of like calm down that stress response cycle inside your body. So exercise is the best one, but there are other things too. If exercise is totally not your thing, another way to do a physical release is to actually lay down and tense every part of your body. I've done this exercise a couple times and I found it really helpful, especially if you're lying in bed, can't quite fall asleep. You don't really want to get out of bed and do a bunch of jumping jacks, but you start realizing maybe there's some stress that you haven't released in your body. This is a very, very good exercise. So what it involves is you're laying down, laying on the floor, laying on a couch, laying on the bed, and you imagine what's causing you a ton of stress. And you start from your toes, you go all the way to the top of your body, and you tense up a section of your body. So I'd probably start with like my toes and my legs. I tense them up. I think about that thing that's really bothering me and I release it. And I keep going slowly up my body, tensing different body parts until I get to my face. And that's the last one. And the way you know that you're doing it right, you will probably have a very cathartic release. And what I mean by that is oftentimes what happening is shaking, trembling, crying is very common. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just your body releasing all of that stress. So that's another good thing to do besides exercise. There's a few more things that you can do in order to release the stress, and that includes positive social interactions, wrapping yourself and surrounding yourself with the people who, no matter what, fill you back up again. And if it's a day where they're just not filling you back up again because they don't have anything to give, that's okay. Just politely say, hey, I'm in a really rough space right now. I love you. And this is clearly not working, so I'm going to take some more space. That's that's diving down a rabbit hole. But positive social interactions can very much be incredibly helpful and a very good distraction. The other thing is laughter or crying. Both I mentioned before, but both of those are going to help your nervous system release all of that stress as well. And last but not least, and oh my gosh, I love this one because we are all doing this day in and day out. Well, not always day in and day out, but this is all something we love to do is creating something, taking all of those bundles of stress that have built up through your day and making something with it, letting it flow through you into something else. It's a beautiful, beautiful strategy that can help you release that stress. The second strategy to to recover from burnout is planful problem solving. Now, this is what Amelia and Emily Nagoski called it. And essentially, what it means is rerouting. So, I mentioned earlier in the last episode, oftentimes burnout is coming from a place where the effort we're putting in is not matching our expectations. So, sometimes we just have to reroute. And I love the analogy they make in the book. They talk about you're on your way to work and you get into traffic and you have an option. And oftentimes the first thing to do is, okay, I'm in traffic. I actually know another route to get to where I need to be. I'm going to take a new route. And that's what rerouting is. We do this day in and day out. You can do this in your business. You can do this in your art. Let's say you hit a wall and you go to your painter and you're making something and you realize, oh my gosh, you don't have the materials you need. Well, maybe there's something else that you can creatively replace for what you thought you needed and see what happens as a result. So that's essentially what planful problem solving is letting your brain shift where your effort is going in order to get to the same destination. All right, well, the third strategy to recover from burnout is positive reappraisal. This is essentially telling your mind and your body and your soul that this effort is going to be worth it. Sometimes you are stuck in that traffic jam and there is no reroute. Maybe you're on a highway, there's no exit, you're kind of just stuck. But let's say you are on your way to this really awesome concert festival. You have plenty of time. You're so excited to go. That's when your brain will tell your body, hey, it's okay that there's traffic jam. It's okay. You're going to have to wait. This concert you're going to tonight, this is going to be worth it. We do this day in and day out, but this is a great strategy, reminding yourself of the meaning and why the effort you are putting in is worth it in the end. All right. The fourth strategy to recover from burnout is redefining winning. Now, this is actually, instead of focusing on the effort you're putting in, this is focusing on the expectations and shifting them. There is so much in this world that we cannot control. So much. And this is actually, I would say, one of the areas that I struggle with the most. I create goals and I want to go after them, and I will put in day after day after day after day of effort without shifting the expectation, because that is the goal that I set. However, that is also a very quick road to burnout if I don't pay attention to when my effort has tipped over the edge and become way too much for the expectation I have set. So, this is when you redefine winning. This is where setting a process goal comes into play. You put the control back into your hands. So something, and I'll talk about my full-time job. I oftentimes struggle actually with, the goals shift a lot. It's a very fast-moving company, and the end goals shift a lot. And I get very frustrated because I feel like I can't ever reach the finish line sometimes. And what I quickly realized was, if I shift my goal If I shift what winning looks like to me to helping my team out, making their lives easier, making my manager really proud of the work that I do, that suddenly takes the goal, the definition of winning, which was like organizational wide with hundreds and hundreds of people all pulling at different strings, down to a smaller unit, a smaller team. And in that way, it was so much easier for me to determine, am I hitting my goals? Am I winning day in and day out if I help the people around me? So that's what redefine winning means. All right, the fifth strategy to recover from burnout is define what meaning is for you. The effort, the expectations, they're not going to matter in the long run if you don't understand why it is meaningful. You have to know the why. Why is it worth it to spend days, months, years writing that novel that you've always been wanting to write? Why is it worth it to spend 3 years building a business that you know is needed? You know that it lights you up inside, but it's not making you a full-time livable salary yet. How do you stay day in and day out as a musician, pounding the pavement, getting different gigs, getting your music out there, trying to find the next way to level up in your career? You have to define why it's meaningful for you and for others. The sixth strategy to recover from burnout is actually a tough one. And I think this is one of the hardest strategies to swallow, so to speak. It's choosing when to give up. When the effort you are putting in and the expectancy, the expectations you have are just not aligning. You've tried all of these other strategies and nothing is shifting the playing fields. Then sometimes what you need is to put yourself back into the driver's seat and remind yourself that you get to decide if you continue on this exact same journey or if you're going to choose a new one. And this is one of the hardest areas because we live in a culture where this is labeled as failing. We prize grit and perseverance. Giving up is not sexy, it's not attractive. Sometimes we get deemed as weak or thought of as weak if we can't keep going. And it's hard. It's so hard to also just like look at the sink cost. How many years, how much time, how much energy, how much money did you put into this effort? But when all else fails, sometimes that does have to be the decision that you have to look at and decide if you are going to make. The seventh strategy to recover from burnout, and this one is a little less introverted or let's say a self-growth process. This one is more external, and that's connecting. One of the best things you can do, and I mentioned this earlier, when you need to release the stress, sometimes laughter, sometimes crying, but connection, those positive social interactions, reaching out, getting involved, volunteering, giving, holding a dinner party, asking a friend to go get coffee with you. Those connections are going to also help you because connection, we are human beings and we all get meaning from connecting with other people. So it's okay. It's okay if you need space to process the burnout and why it happened. You need to process what you want to do next. But my best piece of advice is it's okay to process and make sure you are sprinkling in connection every single day because you will need it. The last strategy, the eighth and final strategy, is rest. Burnout takes so much out of you. And if you keep interacting with the stressors, if you keep trying to power through the stress without giving your body time to heal in a safe, warm space, burnout will last even longer. It's like a cold. Let's say you decide to try to power through the cold and go for a run out in the snow. The cold is not going to go anywhere. Your body is screaming at you that it needs to slow down and it needs help. And you're the only one who can put the right boundaries in place that are going to give that to you. When I hit burnout, I know that I have to be the kindest to myself. There are going to be days where doing an hour of work is all you can do. There are going to be days where you can't work at all. And that's okay too. And what you have to do is show up each and every day and ask yourself, what do you need? You have to suddenly be very, very selfish. And know that in the long run, that if you are selfish in the moment, if you ask for the help you need, if you delegate and take off your plate everything that doesn't absolutely need to be there, and you give yourself time to sleep and rest and heal, it's going to be a much faster road for you to get back to the full, wonderful, incredible version of you that you are. All right, creative. So here's your one thing this week. I want you to choose one of the strategies I just mentioned and implement it this week. And it's okay if you are currently not burned out. Actually, it's great if you are not burned out and you are listening to this episode. And it can be incredibly helpful to still work on implementing some of these strategies into your day-to-day life, because the more of a habit this is, the more that you're going to prevent burnout from occurring. So let me remind you what the strategies are. 1, ignore the stressor, release the stress. 2, planful problem solving, aka rerouting. 3, positive reappraisal, reminding yourself that this is worth it. 4, redefine winning, redefine what a positive goal looks like. 5, define what meaning is for you. What's your why? 6, choose when to give up. Put yourself back into the driver's seat. 7, connect with people around you. And number 8, rest. Take a break and rest. Put your body and your mind and your soul first. All right, creative, if you're enjoying the Empowered Creatives podcast, please show your love and support in a very free way. You can do that by rating this podcast on the podcast platform of your choosing. You can do it by leaving a review and subscribing as well. So hit that little plus button or the subscribe button, and you will get notified when new episodes come out every week. Until the next time, stay creative.